You are listening to the Pens Nation radio show on thepensnation.com. Follow us on Twitter at @thepensnation.
Right!
The NHL trade deadline is over. Officially, we finally know which guys moved, which guys didn't. This is the Pens Nation radio show. I'm Andy Hughes, joined by Mish, Casey, and Nick.
What's up?
And this is the wrapping up of the trade deadline. 2014. Ryan Kesler was the big name that the Penguins were supposedly going after right up until the last minute, but Ryan Kesler ends up staying in Vancouver, as there had been some reports that ownership may not have really authorized them to move Kesler and just kind of take their playoff revenue this year and look back into it in the summer. So Pittsburgh could be in those talks and revisiting those talks with Vancouver in the summer for Ryan Kesler. But the Penguins do make a couple trades. They acquired Marcel Gotch. That rhymes with Scotch. Get the Anchorman reference in there.
Gotch.
Marcel Gotch acquired from the Florida Panthers for a third-round pick in 2015 and a fifth-round pick in 2014. That was the first move, Ray Shero, and it almost looked like it was going to be almost a precursor where they acquired Gotch and possibly could have acquired Kesler after that, and they would have had a replacement if Brandon Sutter would have left. But that was not the case, as Vancouver did keep Kesler, as I said before, and the Penguins got a late deal for Lee Stempniak, the winger, coming over from the Calgary Flames for a 2014 third-round pick. So Ray Shero, he said it in his press conference after the deadline, said, hey, we wanted to improve depth at forward, and I think that's exactly what he did. Didn't have to give up any significant assets. Those picks are all picks that they could probably acquire, in the summer in a minor deal, or, if you want to trade someone's rights or something like that. Those are picks that you possibly could get back. So first off, guys, I guess we'll start with you, Nick. What were your thoughts on these moves, and, how big are these moves? How important were they? They're not the sexiest moves, but I don't really think that they needed that. Sure, you'd love to have that, but you can't have that every year. And I think at the end of the day, this team is better than they were a couple of days ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Like, you can't do that every year. You can't hit the big blockbuster every year. Eventually, you kind of just run out of assets to sell off. But the Penguins, I thought, made the right moves. I think they needed to get deeper at wing. They needed to get deeper on that bottom six in general, and these acquisitions did that. I love the acquisition of Gotch. I think he's going to bring a lot to the team, especially on that bottom six role. He brings a lot of leadership. He brings a lot of kind of just that stability that you need there. Great on the PK, great in face-off. So if he either lines up at center or at the wing for Brandon Sutter gets kicked out of the circle, you bring Gotch right in, and it's almost like you're not really missing a beat because he's a natural center. He's going to go in there and do a great job. So were these needed? I think absolutely they were needed. I think this is, like I said, something that needed to be done. Something needed to be done with that bottom six, and I'm glad Shero was able to address it.
And Mish, you posted a thoughts post, as you usually do. Had a special trade deadline thoughts post. Just kind of for people that may not have read it yet, you should definitely read it. Check it out on thepensnation.com. Just go through your thoughts a little bit on these deals.
I'll throw out the quick summary of what I thought for each trade. For the Gotch trade, well, overall, I thought Shero did a good job. Basically, going into this deadline, at a bare minimum, we had to get depth at forward. At worst, you can look at this as Kobasu was sent down and Taylor Pyatt will be out of the lineup. Those are both awesome moves, no matter who's entering the lineup. So I think that's a win right there. But with Gotch, you get a very versatile player. He can play center. He has played wing early in his career, and it sounds like the Penguins are looking at moving him to wing at times. With his versatility and, basically with his versatility, they can make Sutter into a more versatile player as well. I expect to see Sutter taking shifts at wing on first and second line at times. Gotch and Sutter both probably take center and wing on the third line. Gotch can be a fourth-line center as well. Gotch also capable of playing on the second power play and the top PK. So, I mean, he really brings a little bit of everything, and he should boost Sutter's production, whether he's playing with him or whether he's boosting Sutter to another line. Moving on to Stempniak. Not nearly as excited about Stempniak as Gotch. He ideally would be a third-line winger, but I'm sure we will see him with Crosby and Kunitz at times just to see if he can bring a little scoring touch there. Gibbons has done so well there, honestly, especially drawing penalties lately, that I honestly have no problem with Gibbons being up there for now, at least until he cools down. But if you can get Stempniak on a hot streak, he generally is a 20-goal scorer, or at least averages that in an 82-game season. So if you can get a hot streak out of him with Crosby, I mean, it's worth a shot. And for just a third-round pick, he's worth having. As I said, knocks Pyatt and Kovacic out, so who cares? Stempniak's a win no matter what.
And the Pens had just posted the possible line combinations here. Kunitz, Crosby, Gibbons, Jokinen, Malkin, Neal, Pyatt, Sutter, Stempniak, Glass, Gotch, Adams. That's
so
according
Pyatt
to
is still in the lineup. So,
yep, so that did knock him out, I guess.
This is not right.
He ain't dead yet.
He's still
I have
there.
some calls to make. I will be back.
Someone's house is getting caught on fire.
Yeah. So looks like for now, Gotch will be the fourth line center for the Penguins, and obviously all of this can change quickly. Even in a game, this could all change. But Casey, what were your thoughts on the deals, and where do you think that these guys should play?
I liked the deals. I know a lot of people were excited about, the possibility of getting Ryan Kessler in here, but I think that, adding these two forwards will probably be better in the long run. We needed to work on our depth, and we still get to have Brandon Sutter as a third-line center. Where they should play, I would like to see Stempniak eventually on Crosby's wing, if nothing else, just to see if he works out. Every Calgary person I've listened to or read in the past 24 hours has said that he's probably the closest replacement we can get to Dupuis that was available in the trade market. He's a hardworking guy. He shoots the puck. He shoots the puck just as much as Dupuis does. For Gotch, I mean, I don't know. I want him to play center. There's some people who have suggested that he should be on Sutter's wing. He's just too good of a face-off guy not to have play center and take the face-off. So I want to see him. I'd like to see him center the fourth line. So just have Crosby, Malkin, Sutter, and Gotch right down the middle.
It's a 4-center model.
Yeah, have a 4-center model. There you go.
Skip the 3-center model.
Forget that. We're going to one-up
old.
that.
That's all I got for that.
Here's a question for you. You said you'd rather have Gotch at center, especially because of faceoffs, and I think Sutter's 48% on the season and Gotch is 52.8% on the season. So I totally understand that. How would you feel if it was a system where Gotch was taking the faceoffs and then shifting over to wing while Sutter takes care of basically the defensive responsibilities of being a center still?
I would be perfectly fine with that. As a matter of fact, I brought that up to someone earlier today, have Gotch take the face-offs. And, I mean, Sutter's not a horrible face-off guy if Gotch gets kicked out of the circle, like you said. But I would be fine if Gotch took the face-offs and then switched over the wing. I'm guessing since you brought that up, you'd like to see that happen?
I just don't like Pyatt in the lineup, and I'm kind of flustered right now. So
and if you take Pyatt out of the lineup, I mean, you could have Gotch on that third line and then Vitali centering the fourth line, which I don't understand Bausma's reluctance to put Vitali in the lineup. I mean, to me, he earns his role on face-offs alone. I don't get it.
Am I crazy in saying Engelland should be in the lineup over Pyatt?
No, not at all.
Oh,
I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but is there, other than Brandon Sutter, is there anyone in the bottom 6 who scored as many goals as Anglin has this year?
He's got,
I don't
5
think
goals,
so.
I think?
Yeah, he's
How many-
got 5.
Yeah, and I think they all came as a
In
forward.
limited
I don't
time.
think he scored
Yeah.
any goals as a defenseman.
He's the answer.
Winger for Sid.
It's been right in front of our face all of this time.
I want to go back in time to October, and I want to tell ourselves that we would be hoping for Derek Anglin as a forward by the end of the year.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? Yep, so we'll see how it all unfolds. If anything, this gives the coaching staff some options. But Dan Biles did mention that this could lead to possibly allowing Malkin to move up to Sid's line every once in a while, a little bit more often. We see it every once in a while, but this, now that they have some flexibility at the center position, that could allow Malkin to move up, and then you could have obviously Gotch and Sutter move up respectively wherever they would be, whether it be Sutter, second line center, Gotch, wherever it would be. So that's another option, and I guess they have more depth, and that's the main thing that I think is good about the Penguins. I mean, wasn't the biggest names on the market, but as I said before, I think this is what they needed, and this is the team they have, and maybe this is a good thing because we saw last year how the huge acquisitions of Iginla, Morrow, Murray, and Jokinen, how that kind of made the Penguins the favorite to win it all, and now you don't really have that. So I mean, maybe that little bit of an attitude adjustment that they really need to earn this, and Brian Gibbons being there still on the top line. So there's definitely a different feel this year, and I think maybe that could help them out a little bit because sometimes they're not very good when they're the favorites, and we've definitely seen that over the past couple years. But moving on to the other trades in the National Hockey League, we talked about all the Penguins trades, but a ton yesterday, and really the big one was Marty St. Louis had requested a trade out of Tampa Bay. He had played his whole career with the Lightning, and all of a sudden Steve Yzerman was faced with a tough decision, sent him over to the Rangers, which seemed to be really the only team St. Louis wanted to go to. And St. Louis did get traded there yesterday for Ryan Callahan, first-round pick, and a second-round pick. And if the Rangers make it to the conference finals, that second becomes a first. So a pretty hefty price there for Steve Yzerman there to get. I mean, Steve Yzerman did a great job acquiring all of that given this situation. So that was really the big trade yesterday. Other trades going down were Matt Molson was obviously one of the big names. He went to the Minnesota Wild. Thomas Vanek went to the Montreal Canadiens. Yaroslav Halak went to the Washington Capitals. That's an interesting one. As I said, Ryan Kessler was not traded. David Legwand was sent to Detroit. Tioma Rutu to New Jersey. Tim Thomas to Dallas. Jaromir Jagr was not traded because he has this personal no-trade clause, even though he doesn't have one. Marian Gaborik went to the Los Angeles Kings. So a ton of guys moving around. Alice Hemsky went to Ottawa. Forgot to mention that. That was another target of the Penguins potentially. Of all of these trades, who do you think who would you declare the winners of yesterday? Some teams that were sellers, I thought, did a pretty good job of getting some assets. And, Tampa Bay and New York, that was a really weird trade because, St. Louis, obviously, you don't know what you're getting out of him. He's got 1 year left on his deal after this year. And Callahan, Tampa Bay, yeah, he's a great player, but who knows if they're going to be able to re-sign him. The draft picks are nice, but definitely a weird trade there. And Gaborik going to the Kings, that had a ton of press too. So in your guys' mind, who were the winners of the trade deadline yesterday?
You know what? As crazy as this sounds, I'm tempted to say Buffalo, to be honest with you. They just, build up their stockpile of draft picks. They have 18. I don't know what the count is after yesterday, but going into yesterday's trade deadline, 18 first and second round draft picks in the next 4 years. As long as they don't royally screw this up, they're in a perfect position for a rebuild. So, I've got to give credit to Buffalo. I thought Edmonton also had a pretty good day. They got 2 goalies, still didn't get a defenseman, but they had a pretty good day. Mish, what do you think?
One of the teams, not only yesterday, but if you include the trades from the day before as well, I thought Washington did a really good job getting Dustin Penner for only a 4th-round pick. And, Anaheim was trying to create cap space so they could pick up a guy like Vanek, and it never panned out. And then all of a sudden, dumping that cap space, they pretty much gave Penner away for free. I thought that was a great pickup for the Caps. And then the fact that they picked up Halak as well, I thought the Caps had a good 2 days, which, we saw a year ago, George McPhee I didn't understand his deals at that point, trading away Forsberg. So I thought he at least helped his case out a little bit. We'll see if Washington can do anything with it, but at least there were a couple of cheap ads that I thought the Capitals really needed. Aside from that, got to give Montreal credit for getting Vanek for basically nothing. Garth Snow's just, I don't have words for it anymore. I can't explain him. But good on Montreal for picking up Vanek, because I feel like there are a lot of teams that probably looked at that trade and said, maybe we should have inquired about this, because that was absurdly cheap.
Yeah, you know what? Glenn Sather should be happy that Garth Snow did something yesterday, because he really took the attention off of him.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Everyone was talking about Sather and crushing him for the first couple hours of when trades started happening, and then all of a sudden all the attention was on how bad Garth Snow is. And then I guess my only other takeaway is I thought the Kings made an interesting deal for Gaborik, because it's kind of risky. He hasn't been the same player over the last year and a half or so. He's had trouble with injuries, hasn't really shown the ability to score as much as he used to, at least. But, the Kings just need another goal every couple of games and they'd be dominant. Like, the defense is still there, the goaltending's obviously there. They just can't find any offense. So if he can get just 10 if they can get 10 goals out of him or something, maybe 5 in the playoffs, that might be everything the Kings need to go to the Cup Finals again. So that could be one of the very undervalued trades for the fact that everyone hates Gaborik now.
Yeah, that one kind of surprised me a bit, because he's still injured, isn't he?
I believe so. I don't know the specifics around him right now.
If they could even get 5 goals out of him right now, I think that's going to be a win for them. Mishi kind of nailed it with the Montreal Canadiens. They didn't give up much at all for a pretty prolific scorer. Rental situation, maybe he ends up liking it there. A lot of guys like it up there in Montreal, so maybe he fits right into that scene. But they didn't give up a lot, and the news came out after the fact that nobody pretty much inquired about Thomas Vanek. Like, zero.
Yeah.
Like, no teams were interested, it seemed. And Montreal was like, well, okay, And they took a chance. And, yeah, there's got to be 29 other GMs out there or 28 other GMs out there that are just kicking themselves right now, because they could have made that same deal likely and been that much better.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting trade deadline, as a ton of trades were made, and I think maybe some of the prices for some of those players really came down there at the end, because I think the holdup might have been Kessler. A lot of guys were obviously, you need the cap space for guys like that, and we're obviously not exactly sure when Vancouver said, hey, we're not trading the guy, but that was definitely something that could have held up a lot of people, a lot of general managers of the teams, because a lot of teams were waiting to see what would happen on that front before moving on. So the Penguins get Stempniak and Gotch, but getting back to the whole Kessler thing, obviously the Penguins tried their very best, but maybe the Vancouver Canucks insisted on getting Derek Pouliot. There were some reports that they may have been after Ole Mata, which would be absolutely ridiculous. That would never happen, but would you guys even consider throwing Derek Pouliot in that deal? A lot of, I know Rob Rossi was saying that a lot of the development staff on the Penguins really wants to keep him and thinks he can make an impact very soon at the NHL level. He's a guy that great skater, has a lot of offensive ability. When I saw him in development camp, he definitely needed to work on his defense a little bit more, but hopefully that's something that develops as time goes on. But would you guys be kind of scared to part with Derek Pouliot in a deal for, Ryan Kessler? He's probably not a third line center on most teams, but for the Penguins he is. Would you be willing to give up, the entire farm for Ryan Kessler? And, obviously the Penguins weren't willing to do that, but would you even be willing to do that maybe in the summer? I mean, I know it depends on, Brandon Sutter and everything like that, but would you guys be willing to part with Pouliot for a guy like Kessler?
I would, because you never know how careers are going to pan out. Everybody thought Simone Dupre was going to be surefire right out of basically juniors into the NHL, and he almost made it. But we've seen how his career has tracked, and it's not really been kind of on that projection everybody thought it would be. I mean, will Derek Pouliot be better than Dupre? Likely, but I mean, you never really know. And if the reports are true that they wanted Olli Mata out of that deal, I mean, you can't blame Gillis for trying, because every year you basically see Ray Shero fleece somebody, and he didn't want to get caught in that. So hey, try to go for the sure thing. If you can get it, that's great. If not, you don't have to get rid of a guy like Ryan Kessler. But I would have been willing to part with Derek Pouliot, but it would have been a little more difficult given the circumstances that the Penguins have right now with Chris Letang. You don't know how that's really going to pan out right now, and maybe you do need Pouliot sooner rather than later. Hopefully you don't, and if you don't, maybe he becomes a trade piece again in the summer, but right now you just don't know.
Did Mish have anything to add to that?
Casey, go ahead.
Well, you're asking the only guy in Pittsburgh who didn't actually want the Kessler deal to go through, so no, I wasn't willing to give up Derek Pouliot. Certainly wasn't willing to give up Olli Mata. Which, you know what, the thing with the supposed Olli Mata demand, I'm wondering if that was maybe a symbolic gesture by Mike Gillis. Like, he doesn't really want to trade Ryan Kessler, but he has to look like he's doing something.
Yeah.
So he's gonna make a demand that he knows Ray Shero won't say yes to.
My thoughts on Pouliot. I have no problem trading him necessarily. I don't know if I wanted to do it for Kessler, though. I'd rather do it for a steeper need. We talk wingers all the time, winger depth. If Pouliot could have garnered like a first-line winger of some sort, would have done it in a heartbeat. For Kessler, I'd give up a decent amount, but probably not go as high as Pouliot. And as you guys have said, trading Mata would have been insane. So I really wouldn't trade him for anything at this point.
What about
what?
What about Dumoulin's name was also thrown out there? Was that about as high as you would be willing to go?
I have no issue trading him. I have no issue trading Dupre. There are very few untouchables to me on this roster. Honestly, my untouchables are probably Fleury, Crosby, and Mata, and that's it. That's just for me. And if you're going to give anyone else away, it really depends on what you're getting back. And I don't think a center is worth giving away too much. So Pouliot in the Kessler deal would have bothered me a bit, but whatever, never happened anyways.
Chuck Kobassou's untouchable.
He's got leprosy.
Kovacsou was reassigned to Wilkes-Barre Scranton. A lot of people happy about that one, and that was one that was coming eventually, because he was placed on waivers a few days ago. No one claimed him, so that made him eligible to go to the AHL. So that is where he went. And the Penguins also placed Chris Letang on injured reserve. So we'll see what happens with that situation. I don't expect Chris to return, but quite a trade deadline. It went pretty, obviously it's slow for all of us when you're following it like that, but now it's over, and now Doc Emrick can make his playoff predictions, because he always has to wait until after the trade deadline. We're going to have to talk to Doc about that sometime. He never gives us a prediction if it's before the trade deadline. It's just the way Doc is. Hopefully we'll get him on another day. Penguins are going to be facing the Sharks here shortly. We'll see what happens. That should be a good game against the San Jose Sharks, as Tyler Kennedy is in the lineup tonight against the Penguins. Always fun when Tyler Kennedy.
Let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
We're getting out of here already.
Let's get out of here.
Just as I thought it was going all right, I found out I'm wrong and I thought it was right. It's always the same, it's just a shame, that's all. I could say day and you'd say night. Tell me it's black when I know that it's white. Always the same, it's just a shame, and that's all. I could leave but I won't go, though my heart might tell me so. I can't feel a thing from my head down to my toes. But why does it always seem to be me looking at you and you looking at me? It's always the same, it's just a shame, that's all. Turning me on, turning me off, making me feel like I want too much. Living with you is just putting me through it all the time.
Awkward endings.